asking yourself, why should I study the Old Testament? Well, we know that you want to study the Old Testament because you need an elective, and this fills your elective. But also, there are many other reasons to study the Old Testament. What I just played was a shofar from ancient Israel. I picked this up in Israel last year when I was visiting, and this is an identical replica of what they would have used to signal going into the tabernacle or gathering for combat or different important gatherings in the Israel nation. And we know this because we have studied the Jewish culture. And what is our best source for the Jewish culture? The Old Testament. We have many ancient copies, and we know that the Hebrews kept meticulous records. So we can study that culture. In addition to the ancient Jewish culture, we learn a lot about other cultures. The Old Testament is one of the best sources to learn about the Babylonians, the Persians, the Assyrians, an introduction to the Egyptians. Archaeological discoveries in the last 50, 60, 70 years continue to confirm the different cultures that are described in the Old Testament. Another reason to study the Old Testament is history. The historical record gives us a context of many world events. When we compare the Old Testament to other ancient records, we build a good profile of events that happened around the world. Another reason is literature. Many scholars would argue that the Old Testament is one of the greatest pieces of literature ever written. It includes historical writing, poetry, prophetic writings. It is basically a treasure trove of literature. And finally, a religious perspective. Most people come to the Old Testament from a religious perspective. If you are Jewish, the Old Testament is identical in content to the Tanakh. And so you are studying why you believe what you believe about God. If you are a Christian, the New Testament is a continuation of the story of the Old Testament scripture. It is the foundation of why you believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Why was the nation of Israel looking for a Messiah? And they are continuing to look for a Messiah because of the prophecy that is in the Old Testament. And if you're a Muslim, Muhammad traces his lineage back to Abraham through Ishmael. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are all religions based upon a covenant between God and Abraham. But what if you're not religious at all? Is there any reason to study the Old Testament? Yes. In a global world such as the one that we live in, it is never a bad thing to understand the foundations of the monotheistic religions. If you are in business, education, healthcare, journalism, basically any field, it will benefit you to know about the three most important monotheistic religions in the world. I love teaching this subject. I hope you will enjoy studying it. Welcome to the Old Testament.